Hey all, welcome to Circle of Tone. And today we have Metallica. Ride the Lightning era Metallica, so underrated. Blew my socks off when my mullet was hitting my shoulders. Good times. And today we have something different. This is called a book. This is a book, and we have photographic evidence of what they used. Something like that. This is a great book. You can pick it up for $20, which is a deal because this thing is a beast. So also, Master of Puppets is going to be done in the future as well. So let's get straight to the sounds before we get to the gear. I have a secret. There is a secret to this that nobody talks about. Absolutely nobody. They tell you one piece of information that is key, but they don't tell you the whole story. That's why you come to Circle of Tone. And thanks for the patrons of Tone. These are the guys, the heroes that keep my channels going, keeps my speakers flapping. And you can see their names below. And if you want to become a patron of Tone, description is below. Christmas is here, it really helps me out. Let's show you my results first and the reasons why my tone isn't spot on. Because I have two key elements that are missing, and these elements are the ones that I constantly go on about. You know what a satisfying sound is? Something about that switch, man. Let's play some Metallica. Don't know the rest of that one. I do sound like Kirk Hammett. And soon we're going to be doing Master of Puppets. Enough, let's start. Alright. So that's what I got. Now why did I not crack this one? Here's what they use, okay? I use the same guitar, the same pedal, the same amp, but I use a different speaker and a different microphone. Here's the secret to the tone. This is why Metallica sound like Metallica back in that era, where it's like unmistakable guitar sound. Flemming Rasmussen has a lot to do with it, because he is a goddamn genius. But the other thing is the speaker. They use a G12 65 Celestion. A 65, not a 75, not the old vintage blackbacks. It was 65. Now, why was I saying that there is, there's a little bit of information online about the 65, but why is mine different? There's two versions of the 65. One of them is scooped, and the other one is more, vintage voiced. So you want the one that has the cork surround on the speaker. So that's the one you want. So if you don't have the speaker correct, you are not going to get the tone. That happened to me in my last video with Slash, where mine was a bit too bright. And also there was, some other things like different pickups and fretboard material and things like that. I had some comments saying, like, when I mentioned the fretboard material with tonewood. Tonewood has nothing to do with fretboards. It's to do with the bodywood. So what did he use? Let's get to it. Obviously, in Explorer, we have a 2203 Marshall stock. It's not the Jose Marshall. It's not that one that got stolen just before this session. It's a shame. I do love the tone on Red Lightning, but that amp was seminal. I would love to know what happened to that amp. What's up with all the thievery of the amps? It's like an epidemic back then. You have to watch out for it. That's what a lot of people don't know, that these bands were broke, so they didn't exactly have security guards. They didn't even have roadies, In fact, one of the earliest roadies, I remember reading an interview from him where he said that he was amazed that they actually had extra guitars over one time. Where it's like, oh, they're in the big time now. They have an extra guitar for string breaks. So yeah, the glamour, right? Because we put them on these pedestals, but back then they were like Guns N' Roses, they were practically homeless back then. Explorer, 2203, Tube Screamer. I have the old vintage Tube Screamer right down here. And if you want to see my settings and mic positions and everything, go to my Instagram. There's a link in the description. Another little thing that people don't mention is the microphone. They used an SM7 on this. An SM7, not an SM57. So, if I don't have the speaker and I don't have the microphone, that's why I put this off for so long, where I don't have two of those chains. It's like, it's pointless me trying it. But I know you guys are interested, and I obviously didn't have the Guns N' Roses stuff. People seem to like that one. So this new format is a good way to go. And this is why, speaking of speakers, this is why I keep on saying that the speaker is key. Like, Metallica were turning so many heads back then. And also Anthrax, they used a different speaker. They didn't use the 75. They didn't use, the usual ones. I think it was a CL80. So if you can get out of the vintage 30 craze, you'll start to cut your own little path, Technically, on paper, vintage 30 is a good speaker for metal, but it locks you into these frequencies and you can sound more like other bands if you use the same head, things like that. So if you want to be an individual, get rid of the click track, get rid of the vintage 30 and the SM57 combo. Then you'll sound different from the rest of the herd. That all are started to blend into one big vanilla sausage. And ironically, I mentioned click track. This is the album where Metallica used the click track for the first time. It was only on one song, and that was For Whom the Bells Toll. If you have a plodding, marching song, then you use a click track, and that you use it as a tool in itself. So yeah, they had this. The reason that they ended up in Copenhagen, of all places, was pretty classy, because Metallica was so broke, and they had the budget for Red Lightning, so they couldn't afford to record in California. Remember, at that time, the hair metal thing was starting to take off, and all the Sunset Studios were all booked up solid. But what they found out was the dollar was doing so well in the markets. In Europe, it was worth twice as much as it usually is. So they could get twice as much studio time in Europe than they could in America because of the strength of the dollar at the time, which is pretty damn... See, this is Lars, by the way. And also Lars could visit family as well because he's from that neck of the woods, so that did come into it as well. But that was a big part. And when they got to the studio in Copenhagen, they actually chose, instead of the usual drum rooms, they chose to record it in, it was a huge warehouse type of room. And the ambience in that room was amazing. And the reason they ended up there as well, another reason, was because Lars was listening to other albums, listening for good drum sounds. They liked what Richie Blackmore had done there, drums-wise. And so they set it up the same way. And they basically had mics in all the corners of the room to get that big boom of the reverberation. Remember, I keep on saying that the room is the fifth man, and in this case it was as well. So what happened with the amp of My Dreams, which is their original Plexi, their Jose modded Marshall, because that got stolen, they had to do a mad scramble, and they called all of these metal bands in Europe to see if they could bring them an amp, and they lined all these Marshalls up, and this is the one that they went for in the end. So it wasn't just blind luck, they really did, like me, I go through all of these options. I don't just grab whatever's close and use it, that works as well sometimes though. And this was actually the last time I believe that Fleming used a pedal on the rhythm tones of Metallica, because he's said in the past that he much prefers the grunt of just the amp rather than a boosted, distorted, with the pedal in front of it. Even though Ibanez is a distortion pedal on paper, but it's more of a boost. It's not a distortion. So that's it. Here is a picture of the gear that I am recreating. And this also, remember when I said that their gear was stolen? Their guitar was as well. So this was part of the budget where they were, they were scrambling for gear. And it has the Dirty Fingers there, and he didn't move to AMGs yet. It still had the Gibson Dirty Fingers in there. And that's it. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you know anything else about Ride the Lightning and have, links to people talking about it, I really appreciate that stuff. That's why it's called Circular Tone, because some of this advice and everything I've been given recently has been so great in the comments. So you guys are awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you like these vids, please subscribe. Let's play you guys out again. Let's play a ballad. Ready for it? Clunk. Really need to record this one. This is my favourite riff of mine. Those big strings behind it. Thank you, good night!